Basically, we're Team Science, and I believe science is a superior framework to Islam for guiding human understanding and progress. So, my first point is science is evidence-based, and Islam is more faith-based. So, science every time demands proof. Every claim must be tested, verified, and repeatable. Islam, on the other hand, relies on faith in unseen entities like Allah, which is God, angels, and afterlife. But Islam is fixed. Science grows with us. When new data appears, science changes its views. That's why we've progressed from horse-drawn carts to space travel. Islam, however, is based on 7th century texts that cannot be changed, even when parts of it conflict with modern ethics or knowledge. Thirdly, science encourages questions. Islam punishes doubt. Questioning is the heart of science. Without it, we'd never advance in many Islamic societies. Questioning core beliefs is discouraged and sometimes even punished in Islam. Apostasy, criticism of the Quran, or doubting Muhammad's words can carry severe consequences. Science thrives on doubt, Islam fears on it. My fourth point, science is universal, Islam is more culture bound. Scientific principles work the same in every country with every person. Gravity, electricity, and biology don't care where you're from or who you are. But Islam is deeply rooted in Arab history, language, and culture. Its rules about food, dress, and law were made for one place and time, not the global, diverse world we live in today. And my last point, science delivers real world results. Islam offers spiritual promises. Science has given us vaccines, smartphones, clean water, and space missions. Islam offers spiritual comfort, but no physical advancements. You cannot cure cancer or build a rocket ship with verses from the Quran. Science solves real problems here and now. Islam speaks of rewards in the afterlife, which aren't really convincing.
Respected opponents and audience. My name is Michelle, and alongside my teammate Xenia, we stand as Team God, not against science, but in defense of a fuller truth. Science is powerful, but science alone is not enough. We believe that reason and faith are not enemies, but companions, and that to truly understand the universe and our place within it, we must look beyond the microscope and towards the metaphysical. Before we begin, let me summarize the arguments you will hear today. I will demonstrate that while science reveals the mechanics of reality, it cannot account for its meaning, morality, or origin, and that the extraordinary precision of the universe points not to random chance, but to a rational creator. We need both science and God, but without God, science becomes a tool without a compass. Let us begin by asking, what is science? Science at its best reveals the how. It explains how stars form, how atoms bond, how diseases spread, but science cannot answer the why. Why does anything exist at all? Why do the laws of nature work the way they do? Why should we even trust reason? To seek purpose is a human instinct, and science, powerful though it is, was never meant to answer these questions. Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, once admitted, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. This humility is vital, because the greatest fooling comes when we ask science to explain everything, including things it was never designed to address. Let me offer an analogy. Imagine walking into a room and finding a book on the table. Science can analyze the ink, date the paper, even determine the brain activity of the person who wrote it. But no amount of chemical analysis will ever reveal its meaning or the mind behind it. To understand the book, you must ask, who wrote it? Why? What were they trying to say? In the same way, to fully understand the universe, we must ask, who authored it? Why does it exist? Why does it follow laws at all? This leads us to one of the most powerful philosophical indicators of a creator. The odds of a life-permitting universe occurring by chance are 1 in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123. That number is so vast, it defies imagination. For context, there are only 10 to the power of 80 atoms in the entire observable universe. So what are the options? Either 1, this all happened by blind, mindless chance, or 2, there is a necessary designer who intended for a universe like this. I now believe that the universe was brought into existence by an infinite intelligence. But there's another realm science cannot enter, and that is morality, which our second speaker will further discuss. Science tells us what is, not what ought to be. If there is no God, no transcendent moral lawgiver, then right and wrong becomes matters of opinion or evolutionary convenience. Belief in God gives us that standard. It tells us that humans are not just clever apes, we are beings of inherent worth, created with purpose. It tells us that good and evil are not illusions. They are a reflection of a moral law grounded in the very nature of a moral God, right? To honor the creator's design. Science arose in cultures that believed this universe was intelligible because it was made by an intelligent mind. Without such a foundation, why should we assume nature follows laws? Why believe that our minds, evolved from mindless matter, are reliable instruments of truth? The atheist philosopher Thomas Nagel once confessed, I want atheism to be true. It's not just that I don't believe in God, I don't want there to be a God. This honest admission reveals that belief and disbelief are not always about logic. They are also about desire, worldview, and the implications we are willing to accept.
Well, one of the points that you guys stated was that science only tells us how things exist, right? But religion tells us who did it and why it exists. But there's a problem with the argument that just because religion claims to answer who and why, that doesn't mean those answers are actually true. They're based on belief and perspective, not evidence, unlike science, which proves actual existence through evidence. Religion assumes there's a creator and a purpose behind everything, but it can't prove it. It just tells a story and expects you to accept it on faith and belief. Science doesn't answer those questions because they're not based on evidence and some things that we can see. They're based on human emotion and human curiosity. And just because science doesn't give you a comforting answer doesn't mean religion automatically wins.
Thank you. Good evening, esteemed opponents and the respected member of the audience. My name is Zenia, and I stand before you to explore a question that touches the very core of our understanding, identity, and existence. That question is, are God and science opposed to one another? This question is often thrown into conversations with passion and tension, yet rarely examined with depth, sincerity, and clarity. Today, I speak as a second speaker for Team God, following my teammate Michelle, who has already explained that our position is not about rejecting or fearing science. We honor science, we benefit from it, we cherish its achievements. What we challenge is the idea that science is sufficient in itself to answer all life's questions. We argue that God and science are not rivals, but rather companions, each addressing a different yet equally vital dimension of truth, but a culmination of both. I will now build upon these ideas and present a deeper case for why science is incomplete without God, and why belief in God is not only compatible with science, it is essential for making science meaningful, moral, and humane. Let me begin by reflecting on the very nature of science. Science is a human effort to understand the material world. It is based on observation, experimentation, and logical inference. But it is also a dynamic process, always learning, always revising, and always evolving. Consider how scientific theories have shifted over time. There was a time when the Earth was thought to be the center of the universe, a belief supported by the best minds of that era. Later, that view was overturned by Copernicus and Galileo. Then came contrast this with the belief in God. The core message of God as conveyed through revelation has remained consistent, the belief in one God. The moral command to act justly, love others, and seek truth. The words that life has a purpose, that humans are accountable for themselves, and that the universe was not an accident but a creation. Religion is not about clinging blindly to the past. It is not opposed to knowledge or science. In fact, the Quran itself repeatedly urges human beings to reflect, to observe, to think deeply as meaningful today as they were dozens of centuries ago. It is clearly evident that science evolves and God is constant, more trustworthy, more reliable. We are not neglecting science. We are honoring both. Science uncovers the mechanics of the world, but it is God who gives those mechanics purpose and meaning. God, morality becomes a social trend, shifting with public opinion and political power. But divine guidance offers something higher, a standard, a sense of accountability, a clear line between right and wrong. When we recognize God as a source of moral truth, we understand that human beings have dignity, not because of their race, class, intelligence, or status, simply because they are created by God. We understand that every act matters, even the ones that go unseen by others. Science cannot give us this. It can explain how the human makes decisions, but it cannot give us the meaning to those decisions. Science is incredibly powerful, but it is also limited. It is based on a method that studies what is observable, testable, and repeatable. It cannot answer questions about beauty, love, grief, or meaning. If someone asks, why do we fall in love? Why do we seek beauty? Why do we grieve when someone passes away? Why do we long for purpose? Science can describe brain chemistry, but it cannot provide us with depth with the mystery behind those experiences. Give science its soul. God gives knowledge its direction. God gives life its meaning. So no, science and God are not opposed. They are not rivals in a debate. They are partners in a larger story, each pointing to the truth on its own way. Let us not fall into the trap of believing that we must choose one and reject the other. Let us instead recognize their harmony. Let us honor science as a study of God's creation and God as the source that allows science to exist.
So the opposition team God stated that religion tells us who created the universe and why it exists, while science only tells us how. They also said science admits it doesn't know everything, therefore it's limited. Science gives us knowledge, but not consciousness, like morality. Religion gives us moral guidance, and religion is the source of absolute trust. I mean, what the absolute truth? Science keeps changing. So, firstly, they say religion tells us who created the universe and why, but these are not answers based on evidence. They're on belief, tradition, and ancient texts that differ from one religion to another. Islam says Allah created the universe, Christianity says God, Hinduism says Brahma, all claim different origins. Which one is the truth? Science doesn't guess it. It follows the evidence and it doesn't stop asking questions just because we don't have every answer yet. It has discovered the age of the universe, the Big Bang, and how life evolved, all through tested methods, not faith. Often claims to already have the final truth. That shuts down questioning. Which would you trust more? Someone who says we don't know yet, let's find out, or someone who says this book has all the answers, don't question it. Morality doesn't need religion. It comes from humanity. The opposition argued that religion gives us morality, but if that were true, then all religious people would have been perfectly, well, I mean, would be perfect people, and non-religious people would be immoral and bad people. But that's not reality. Morality comes from empathy, cooperation, and understanding the consequences of our actions. These are things studied and explained by psychology, neuroscience, and sociology. These are all sciences. And by the way, religious morals have changed over time. Many religions once justified slavery, treated women unequally, or rejected other faiths. Science and reason helped society evolve past those outdated views.
Good evening again. Let me now respond directly to the key claims raised by the opposing side and show you why belief in God remains not only reasonable, but essential. They said there's no evidence for God. But what do we mean by evidence? If we're looking for something to measure in a lab, we've misunderstood the question. God is not a molecule or a math formula. The evidence for God is philosophical, rational, and existential. Like the fact that the universe had a beginning, that the laws of physics are finely tuned, that consciousness exists, and that humans everywhere seek purpose. These aren't random observations. They're signposts pointing beyond the physical. They also said belief in God is just cultural, something passed down, not discovered. But truth doesn't become false just because it's widely accepted. People are born into all kinds of belief systems, but we're not debating tradition, we're debating truth. And the question of God is not one that crosses culture, class, and history. From ancient philosophers to modern physicists, minds across centuries have recognized a deeper intelligence behind the universe. Next, I argued morality comes from humans. We don't need God to be good. Now it's true. You don't need to believe in God to act kindly, but that's not the real question. The real question is, where does moral truth come from? If morality is just made by people, then anything can be justified by majority rule. Racism, slavery, oppression, all were once legal. Without a higher standard, right and wrong becomes moving targets. But when we say something is truly wrong, no matter the time, the law, or the culture, we're appealing to a moral law beyond human opinion. If there is a moral law, then there is a moral lawgiver, which is exactly what belief in God explains. No, purpose, not to stop progress, but to give it purpose. So no, belief in God is not a relic of the past. It's the reason we believe human life has dignity, that justice matters, that truth is worth defending, even when it's unpopular. To conclude, science is a powerful tool, but it has limits. It can tell us how to split an atom, but not whether we should. It can measure the brain, but not the soul. It can explain the mechanics of life, but not the meaning of life.
You're muted, Dr. Salim.
Assalamu alaikum. Aisha, all of your students, it was truly an honor. I'm really so amazed and really positively surprised at the articulate nature of the arguments that were presented from both sides. They were very clear, very succinct, very precise. There was no dabbling, there was no beating about the bush. And I think both sides did a fantastic job. I mean, they could have been playing the devil's advocate, but still, it was wonderful.
That's really, I think I really enjoyed the arguments on both the sides, I must say. Very convincing and very impressive. As Dr. Shahzad said, there was no playing of the devil's advocate, but very positive and constructive debate. So thank you all for presenting your arguments, and thank you for arranging this fantastic session. It is about critical thinking, as Dr. Shahzad pointed out.
Thank you, Aisha. First of all, I would say it was an amazing performance. Frankly, I was not expecting this level of mature conversation and argument from all the participants. So hats off and a big applause for all of you. I mean, amazing. I was not expecting this one. Especially team science. Obviously, you had to play devil's advocate. It was also very hard to play on the other side. So you did an amazing job. And then Team God, obviously, you guys had an amazing challenge, specifically in the scenario in the current times when you're thinking through a scientific mind, and everything around us is science-driven, and rationality is something which is an important thing, the way we think in the current times. So I would say again, thank you very much.